Okay, from this point you would gather up your parachute. You might even be wearing it, be a back chute. And you mount the airplane from this side, or you could come up the strut on the front, and then we'll go get in the cockpit, and I'll give you a kind of a run around the cockpit, showing where all the switches are and things like that. I'm Clarence E. Bud Anderson, currently USAF retired. I flew in World War II in a Mustang painted just exactly like this airplane that I'm sitting in now. It's a real P-51B Bravo. The first ones with the Merlin engine in them, and it looks just like how I flew it. It's painted just like I flew it in World War II before D-Day. And what I'm going to do is go around the cockpit and point out various things. One thing you have to know that this is not what you would call a production cockpit. It is not exactly like it was in World War II. Some of the stuff is there exactly where it was, but some of the equipment in here we did not have in World War II. And there's another point that most of the restored Mustangs have modern equipment in them, and almost all of them are a custom cockpit. You find very, very few stock cockpits. And even if you found a stock cockpit, you're going to find modern radios and modern GPSs and things like that to make the airplanes fly better and make them more useful and have good, reliable equipment. What I like to do is just go around the cockpit from the left to the right, is pretty much how you would do it. There is a checklist for these airplanes, and I don't have one, and I'm liable to make a mistake. I'm liable to leave something out, but you'll have to put up with that. I'm going to start over here on the left, and on the left, way down here, as far as you can go, the last thing you see on the left side of the console is the flap switches. And you can hear the notches, and they're in full down at the moment, and of course they stay full down until you have hydraulic pressure. Next up you have air filter controls that we didn't bother with in England. They were for dusty operations in Africa and things like that. And but that's just to give you a filtered air to the engine. The next three instruments up here, or knobs up here, are very important in the P-51. They are the trim controls. This is your rudder trim, this is your aileron trim, and this is the elevator trim. For takeoff, it's very important to preset this thing to about 6 degrees right rudder. And that helps you with the right rudder on takeoff, which you need considerable rudder to keep this thing straight when you add a lot of power. And then around neutral for takeoff, you set that right there at neutral, and of course neutral for the aileron. Next up, you come to the throttle quadrant, and the red knob here is for the engine. It's in idle cutoff, and then mixture rich and mixture lean, and you use that during the starting procedure. And when you're flying, it's mostly an auto rich. The throttle, that's pretty much back where it belongs for a start, or for idle. Idle'll be back here. Up here is for full throttle. And then the propeller control, the black knob with a P, that's in full fine pitch, high RPM. The back motion would be for lower RPM. Okay, we go down from there, and here is the landing gear handle. You can see my hand on it, and you came out like this and up with the handle. In emergency procedure, when you put it down, it slips into a detent, and for emergency release, if it doesn't come down the normal way, you pull this out and push it all the way to the bottom, and that unlocks the doors and the landing gear, and then they drop out by gravity. And on the B models over here on the right side, you have a hand pump for a little extra hydraulic. If you lose your engine-driven hydraulic pump, you do have a hand pump. It's not available on the D models. Right above this is an emergency procedure. If you could not release your bombs or your external fuel tanks, which you have two, one under each wing, you can manually salvo the tanks or the bombs. And then right above that, we've got the magneto switch, off, left, right, both. Important during the starting procedure to remember to have that thing on. Then we come up higher on the cockpit. Here's your landing gear indicators. Two down, this is the main ones, and this is the tail wheel, and they've got to be in the green when you're ready to land. And of course, when you want to take off and when you start, you want to see 3 greens. If you have an unsafe condition, you'll have a red light right above it. These are conventional Mustang engine instruments, the RPM, manifold pressure. We did not have a coolant pressure. Airspeed looked pretty standard. Needle ball right here for instrument flying. This is a standard engine instrument. Fuel pressure on this side, oil pressure here, and that's it. And then oil temperature up on top. That's a good one to be watching too. Then your artificial horizon and the gyro. These look much more modern than I remember. And down here is an added feature. That's probably a traffic. And then your altitude, your altimeter. This is set for 800 feet, which is what we have right here, last stuff right now. That's your distance, altitude above sea level. And here's a rate of climb instrument. Coolant pressure. I don't see it in here, but it's got here it is. Coolant temperature. Very important instrument in this airplane. It's liquid cooled. Here's some modern instruments here. Here's 2 vents. These are non-standard. We only had, I think, 1 came out over here. Here's a modern transponder, which we did not have. Oxygen lights. These are conventional. And a suction gauge. Not sure we have that. Going on down, we see a parking brake. We very seldom touch that. Here's an accelerometer. We have accelerometers. They were usually up on the major panel. We've got a modern radios and GPSs in this particular airplane, and a little comm switch, which is non-conventional. Looking on down, you have fuel management here. These put you on the left main wing tank and the right main wing tank. And then these are the aux tanks, the drop tanks. These are for the main tanks right here. And here's the fuselage tank, if you had one. This particular airplane does have one. It's not a full-size The kind we had were 85 gallons. Modern radios in this airplane, so I won't go into that. Our radios were a little box located over on this side, a little box, and it had 4 channels on it and an off button, and that's all the radio we had, 4 channels of VHF. Going on further down here is an emergency fuel shut-off, ensure we have that, and then a landing gear fairing door doors open switch. Pull this thing out to a detent, and that let the locks off the landing gear fairing doors in case you wanted to open them in flight. And if you did that by the landing gear, it automatically did it anyway. We use this quite often on day-to-day operations after you come in and shut down. Yeah, park it and shut down. You want to break the hydraulic pressure so that you can push the flaps down and you can push the fairing doors down further. And now we get over here to the electrical side, and this airplane is quite different because the drop tank controls are over here to pressurize them. And right below it are these are two, I think they were over here on the left side on the standard airplane, the battery switch and the generator switch. And then below that we have a start switch and a prime switch, and a boost ignition, which we didn't have anything like that. Then very important switches are the coolant, the radiator air control for the coolant, and very important in this airplane. It has and for the oil and the coolant. It's a liquid cooled engine, so it's a critical instrument. And the forward switch position right here is like an automatic, and down here you go into a manual position, and on a 45-degree left, that's closed. You hold it and it manually closes it electrically, or you go to the right and it manually opens the coolant doors. When you got into the airplane, you expected to have your coolant doors in the wide open position. Keeping the engine cool after start and taxiing was very important. You know, the airplane on the ground would heat up, so you needed to have the coolant door wide open manually. And so you check that during the pre-flight, and then you come up here and you double check it to make sure that it's open before you start and taxi. So that here's the generator and the start switch. It was located about over here near the magnetos on the standard thing, and here's a radio master switch, and I think that's an added switch that we probably did not have. Landing light switch. Now this is the night flying stuff, and here's a boost tank, a pitot heat, and okay, so supercharger high and low blower. That was a separate guarded cover over here to check supercharger check. Okay, go down on the floor, and you see the ring tank fuel gauge buried in the floor on the left and the right and left. This airplane has a coolant door radiator indicator thing, so it's another way of checking your radiator. But that's a added switch, added indicator in this kind of airplane. We did not have that in the standard airplanes that we flew during the war. Other important things over here, of course, are the control stick. It's unlocked now. And the way you lock that, you pull this little pin out and mash that in there and then put the pin back in. I'm not going to do that right now. And that'll lock the flight controls so, they don't get blown around when the aircraft's apart. Rudder pedals are adjustable in and out, so it can handle tall pilots and short pilots. And the seat actually raises up and down a little bit too. During the war, we wore a backpack type chute because in the seat we had a survival, sea survival type of little rubber life raft, so that if you bailed out over the water, if you had a little life raft that you took with you. Oxygen regulator is right here, and then back here we have a lot of circuit breakers. I'm sure we had all those things in the wartime airplane. I don't see a hose connected. Okay, on this area. The oxygen was up in this area here on the wartime airplane. A couple other features up here, of course, is the hand crank on the canopy, which you went like that, lock it, and unlock it that way. Cranked it back or all the way forward. And then during an emergency, if you wanted to release the canopy manually, there's a red handle up here that you pulled out like this, and it took the pins out of the holders of the canopy, and then the canopy would blow off. And I think I've pretty well covered it now. The only other things that we had in the airplane, the World War II airplane, of course, was the gun sight system that was sat right here in your face. And believe me, the early ones came right out to your nose and actually interfered with the vision of the cockpit. And we had to cut away the fairing here and get them very close to the armor plate so that you had more room in the cockpit. They were really dangerous. If you bellied in, you're pretty well going to end up with some kind of facial scars, that's for sure. I think that pretty well covers the cockpit. I'm Colonel Bud Anderson, and I'm going to do you might say, a walk around on a P-51B Bravo airplane. This particular airplane right here is painted exactly like my airplane was painted in World War II. It's been restored by Jack Roush, and he's done a marvelous job of restoring it. And one of the main features, of course, is the Malcolm hood, which is quite a modification on the P-51Bs and Cs. Bs and Cs had what we call a birdcage canopy, and you opened it like this over the top like that, and of course it had slats on the thing, and of course when you're looking out, the damn slat is right there by your eye. And so these were marvelous improvement for a pilot to look around in aerial combat. Well, when you did a walk around in the morning, you usually came out from operations and walked out to your airplane. Your crew chief would meet you somewhere in the area, and then you'd go over the paperwork and sign the Form 1A, the maintenance records on the airplane that the military kept at the time, and discuss anything about the airplane if you wanted. Of course, this was my own personal airplane, and I knew it very well, and I had a wonderful crew, ground crew. I flew all of my combat missions, 116, with 480 hours and 20 minutes of combat flying without a single abort for any reason whatsoever. That's pretty remarkable, actually. Having said what my combat record was, 116 missions without an abort, leads me to my crew chief story, which I like to tell whenever I can. You know, I think you could imagine yourself being a crew chief of an airplane, World War II. Your pilot's doing the fighting and the dying, and you're back here maintaining that airplane, and you know, if you're the crew chief, that's your airplane, and you're a part of it. And when that guy gets a kill and puts it up in here, that's your kill too. The guys were very supportive and wanted to do their part. Just incredible. And the story I like to tell, my crew chief story, is about my second tour when I had a P-51 D Dog, the classic model over here, and it was camouflaged in this dark green camo, completely, just about like this airplane here. And it was my second tour, and Otto Heino had been promoted to tech sergeant, and crew chiefs were staff sergeants. So he had a flight of 6 airplanes to oversee, and so he handpicked a new crew chief for me, Mel Schoenemann. And then, of course, the third member of my crew was Leon Zimmerman, who was my armor. All 3 of those guys were my crews during World War II, and also during my P-39 training. So as the story goes, in my second tour, I have the completely camouflaged D, and I think it was in November of 1944. I remember it was snowing over Germany, and snow had hit the night before, and I mean a big time snow, and all of northern Germany and northern Europe was in dense snow. And I looked down. We used to fly in the fingertip 4, a leader and a wingman and a element leader and a wingman. And I looked down against the here's a nice white surface right here.
with the flying on 4. And at this point in time, we weren't paying too much attention to the paint schemes. And we had all green ones, we had all silver ones, we had some that were in half camo and half silver. And I'm looking down at this snow, and which one stood out? Well, of course, the dark one stood out. The camouflaged airplane stood out. So I made a mental note to talk to my crew when I got back to after the mission. When I landed, I got them together and I said, you know, it's snowing over there and I'm going to finish my tour in the winter. Whenever this thing is laid up for heavy maintenance, would you please de-paint it, take the camo off of it and make it a silver paint scheme. And I put it to them on a tactical basis that it might save my butt. But frankly, you know, I had another reason. That was one reason, but I kind of thought the all silver airplanes looked a little cooler than the all camo airplanes. So I told them that, and I thought it would take, you know, 2 or 3 days to do that. And I did tell them, when it's laid up for heavy maintenance, please repaint the airplane. So I went in and I was the operations officer, and I decided that I wanted to fly the next day, put my name on the board, and went home and forgot about it. Next morning after breakfast and getting the briefing, come out, I grabbed my chute in operations and I walked out to my revetment. I'm the closest, my revetment was easy walking distance from operation. I had my parachute over my shoulder and I climb up over the revetment and I'm standing there looking down, and here's my Mustang sitting there in gleaming aluminum. And I was really quite flabbergasted. You know, I thought, wow, did those guys think I gave them a direct order to do that? And then I looked at them closely and I noticed their hands were raw. You know, the skin had been pushed off of them, and they'd been rubbing and rubbing, and there was a little bit of blood on them. And it made me feel really, made me feel like hell. I said, I wonder, did these guys think I gave them a direct order to paint that thing right there? And then I thought about it a little bit, and I thought, no, you know, they wanted to do that. That was their contribution to the war, and they wanted to just please me however they could. And I just can't say enough about the crew chiefs of the world. So after you finish your paperwork and discussion with the crew chief, they always had the airplanes just absolutely perfect and ready to go. And there wasn't much sense of doing a walk around, but that's required. So we did a cursory walk around to comply with the rules. The pilot will do a walk around. So you walked around the airplane and just kind of checking. Here you want to make sure the gas caps are closed, the gun bay doors are down tight and smooth. Come over here, check the ailerons, see the tabs hooked together. Come along here, look on the wingtip, see if you don't, make sure you don't have any busted lights. This one doesn't have them all, and it has an extra light. We didn't have that one. And then you got over here, check your leading edge just so it's small, smooth, landing light, make sure it's not cracked and on. Then we got here, we would have a big 108-gallon fuel tank. It was just round, cylinder round and round on the end. And they were made out of pressed paper and resin. And we did that so that we wouldn't drop aluminum tanks over Germany and give them aluminum to help manufacture airplanes. They were very successful, but you had to get rid of them as soon as they were empty, or if you got into combat, of course, you jettison them immediately because they were a lot of extra drag and they would not stand a lot of airspeed. I can't remember what it was, but after a certain airspeed, they would shred. So, and we did carry bombs briefly for about 30 days after the Normandy beachhead landing. Okay, check your bomb. You check the guns, and this is there's a difference on the B and the D, of course. The B model only had 2 guns, but they were also mounted differently. There's several production changes between the B and the D, but one of them, these guns are laying in here sideways, and I don't know which way they lay. Yeah, probably this way. And so the ammo doesn't feed in there directly like that, it feeds at an angle. And so we were having gun jams when you were pulling G's and firing. The guns would jam and you had no way of recharging them and all that. And we finally got that ironed out by having very clean working guns and then putting trays on top of the ammo so it wouldn't flop around. But when you're doing a walk around, you just check and make sure. They usually had tape over the things like that. You come around and check your tires. You know, the old saying, fighter pilots come around and kick their tires. But you just want to make sure that the tire was inflated. And you check a lot of the things like that. Come under here and check any loose lines and stuff like that. These doors are hydraulically operated, and we have the hydraulic pressure has been broken on them, so you can actually move them up and down. You want to take a look at the radiator while you're under there and make sure there's no birds in there or stuff like that, rabbits and other kind of animals. And then we'll come around and check the props. These would be removed, and there isn't much you can check. You're looking for Zeus's that are not tight, stuff like that. Check the propeller just for a smoothness, and you'd want to be sure that this thing was out. And again, you check your check the main scoop, and you come around on this side and do the same. You get in here and you look around for loose lines, anything that doesn't look there. Oh yeah, and on the landing gear you want to be sure that this thing isn't flat. It has a certain, you want to make sure there's a gap here on the oleo strut so that it's not down here flat, or it's not stuck way up here, and the airplane would be cocked sideways like that. Not much else you can check just to make sure, you know, everything's working. Again, the gun's the same thing. Again, on this side, you would check your tank and just make sure it's hooked up properly, and look for any visual reference of a problem. And on this side, if you had a pitot head to cover on it, it would be removed. Your crew chief would remove it, but if it wasn't, you want to be sure and take that off because it will interfere with the airspeed indication properly. Smooth leading edge. Come on out here, same thing. Check all this going back. You get on the trim tab again, flaps, and again, you want to make sure all these doors and all these things were attached, and in particular he wanted that to be sealed properly. And come down in here. Now when you come by the radiator, the thing that I always look for when I first walk up on the airplane is to make sure that this scoop is in what we call the open position. That's manually wide open. And so you knew that the controls are set properly. But we always double checked them. This is a tie-down hole that goes through there. Just make sure that the airplane isn't tied down. Come around here, leading edge. The B models that we had, the Bs and the Cs, did not have this strake on it. They came right down here like that to the wing, and these were a field mod. They came on some of the late production airplanes, but they were added afterwards. Jack had a standard tail and decided to add this ventral to improve the directional flying qualities of the airplane. You got the leading edge, counterbalance. All you're doing is just checking for, see that everything's here. Trim tab, come around here. Here's the rudder tab and the rudder. And then you come around this side, same stuff. Check the wing, back and forth. And then you're back here. You want to just check your tail wheel, make sure it's inflated properly and the doors are unobstructed. And again, here's what we check here. Make sure that that thing is wide open. That's real important. Then the last thing on this side, you have the fuselage tank thing. You want to make sure it's closed and sealed properly. I can remember him rolling over like this, and I'm rolling over this, and I looked up, down through the top of my canopy, and I see this robin egg blue Focke-Wulf 190 goes sailing through the black crosses on it. So wow, you know, this is really something. So I just tucked it in real close, not real close, staying a little bit back where a wingman would stay in the position. And we come out, and he's just starting to pull up on this guy. And somebody on the radio just says, "Mustang, Mustang, there's one on your tail." And so my flight lead then, he just whipped, he thought they were talking about him. And so he took some drastic evasive maneuvers, and I'm staying right with him, you know. And pretty soon he lost me. And I pull up, and here I am over Germany all by myself, the thing you're not supposed to do. But then I saw an airplane, I went up and joined on him, and he was my flight lead. We never found out who the guy was that hollered, you know, but I had no idea what was going on. I was just hanging on. And that's my first combat experience at all.
Will everyone please rise for the presentation of our nation's flag? Please remain standing and join in as Colonel Bud Anderson leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by Stacy Anderson, who will sing our national anthem.
Please place the flag and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Please be seated, everyone. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rich Anderson, and I am very proud and honored to be your host this afternoon. Welcome to the unveiling of the Auburn Community's Veteran Recognition Site here at the Auburn Airport. It is our plan eventually to have a number of veteran recognition sites throughout the city, and this is one of our very first ones. And this one features a magnificent Douglas Van Houde created bronze of Triple Ace World War II pilot Colonel Bud Anderson and his famous P-51 aircraft, Old Crow. At this time, I would like to take a moment to thank our sponsors who helped to make today's event happen. They are A&A Stepping Stone. A&A Stepping Stone provided the commemorative bricks that you see around the base of the statue. The Auburn Aviation Association, who has been a tremendous help to us over the 2.5 years that we have been planning this event. The Auburn Ale House, wonderful, wonderful restaurant, wonderful beer. If you're down in Old Town Auburn, please stop by and visit them. The City of Auburn, who provided the labor and the finances to manufacture the base upon which the statue stands. Continental Golf and Construction, who has provided all of the chairs and the transportation and the tables out on the field today. Grocery Outlet of Auburn, who provided the hot dogs, condiments, foods, napkins. Fawn Ridge Winery, located just off of Highway 49, just down the road here. They make some wonderful wines out there. Please go visit them. Stuart and Stephanie, who own that vineyard, are marvelous people. La Forneretta Restaurant, right next door in Newcastle, California. Just a lovely little romantic Italian restaurant. The Monkey Cat Restaurant, Jim Brill, down in downtown Auburn, voted #1 restaurant year after year in downtown Auburn. Protronics, who are providing our internet for today. Raley's Grocery Store, Recology, the Ridge Golf Course and Country Club, the Scott's Company, manufacturers of Scott's Lawn Care and Miracle Grow products. Sleeping Dog Productions and Flying on Demand, who are filming our event today and providing live streaming over the internet. Smart TV, providing internet access. TGH Aviation, right here on the Auburn Airport. They have been our primary supporter and sponsor throughout this entire project for the last 2.5 years. And of course, Wings Restaurant right next door here. Most importantly, I wish to thank the members of the Bud Anderson Statue Committee. It was your dedication and hard work that made all of this possible. I was honored to be the chairman of your committee. You're wonderful people. You did wonderful work, a job well done. Most importantly, I want to say thank you to our financial donors. While artist Douglas Van Houd donated his time, his labor, and his artistic talent, which we greatly appreciate, however, the material still needed to be purchased. It is you, the citizens of the Auburn community, who made the greatest donations. I am always astonished at the generosity of the people in our community. It was overwhelming at times how much you people gave. I cannot thank you enough. Whether you donated $10 or $10,000, believe me, we both needed and very much appreciated your contribution. If you would still like to contribute, there is a possibility of buying a dedication or commemorative brick which will be laid in the foundation, and that may be purchased off to our left here under the canopy. I want to say thank you to both Connie Bolin and Ray Fowler, the pilots who flew Old Crow all the way out here from Georgia. What a long flight. I also want to say a special thanks to the Chief Executive Officer of Scott's Company and the owner of Old Crow Aircraft, Jim Hagedorn, and his wife Carly, for allowing us the use of Old Crow for today's celebration. At this time, I would like to recognize a number of celebrities and elected officials who have joined us here today. And we'll start with Mr. David Hartman, former host of ABC's Good Morning America show. Where are you, David? And now, Bud, we have a little bit of a surprise for you, Bud. I would like to introduce Mr. Gary Justice, the Federal Aviation Administration Flight Safety Team Program Manager, who is here today to make a very special presentation to Colonel Anderson. Mr. Justice, please.
Sir? So which one? Okay, looks like this one. Colonel Anderson, please come up here. It is my very distinct honor and privilege to represent the FAA in awarding you the Wright Brothers Master Pilot Certificate. The certificate is... This is the most prestigious award that the FAA gives to any civilian pilot, and it's based on their exhibition of professionalism, skill, and just to recognize their expertise in any matters aviation. A few of the important eligibility requirements are to hold a U.S.-issued pilot certificate, which Bud does. Have 50 or more years of flying experience, which Bud does. Be a U.S. citizen. Are you? Have not had any airman certificate revoked by us. And that's true. I can attest to that. Be of good moral character. Have at least 3 letters of recommendation. It's really no surprise that we had a lot more than the minimum. See, one of the things that will happen after we give Bud this award is that we will list him in what we call the Roll of Honor. It's hosted on the FAA Safety Team's flagship website. It's faasafety.gov, and he will be on that list along with many other recipients, including such notables from the greatest generation, peers of Colonel Anderson, for example, Chuck Yeager and Bob Hoover. And you'll be joining that group and certainly fit well into that group. Along with the certificate that I'm going to give to Bud shortly, we'd also like for him to have a copy of all the records that we had on file on Colonel Anderson. As you can see, it's wrapped in a pretty blue ribbon package, and that's a good thing. Also, along with that, the certificate and the records, I have some commemorative gold pins. One of these would be we would give to Colonel Anderson, and the other, the Colonel would have given to his Ellie in recognition of her support of his success. So, sir, on behalf of the FAA, I give you this Wright Brothers Master Pilot Award Certificate, and it again is my honor, privilege, and pleasure to do so. And I hope you folks appreciated that I put my hat on so the glare wouldn't affect your photos.
What can I say? When he said a surprise and then the FAA, I thought I might be getting a violation or something. Well, thank you so much. That's a true honor, and I appreciate it very much. And okay.
What a wonderful award. Thank you, Mr. Justice. It is now indeed my pleasure to introduce to you world-renowned artist Douglas Van Houd and Mayor of Auburn, Keith Nesbitt. Come on up, gentlemen.
Well, another great event.
Yes.
It's my pleasure to give the city the maquette of the sculpture. This is the original one that we do first, the little model before we do the large one. And we'd like to present this to the city. And did you?
So, is it my turn now?
Yeah, it's your turn.
Okay.
I said what I'm going to say.
Yeah. I'd like to thank everybody for being here today. I really appreciate the turnout to honor a true hero, a member of Auburn that's a true hero. I want to thank to all the organizations that put this together, both the statue, the money raising for the statue, and this event today. We've got our Rotary clubs. We've got a lot of volunteers serving food, but mostly everyone that showed up to honor this great individual today. I want to thank Richard Anderson for being the MC and really heading up this force. Thank you very much. Doug Van Hout. In a small town today, and we're celebrating two world-renowned celebrities, in my opinion. One, Doug Van Hout, and the other, Bud Anderson. So, I think it's always a true momentous occasion when you can honor a local hero. Bud Anderson was born in Oakland, California, but he was raised in Newcastle. He went into the service, served in the 357th Fighter Squadron, 16 and a quarter confirmed air victories. And later on, you know, we talk about the pioneer spirit a lot in Auburn and how we all come together to do things. And Bud exemplifies that pioneer spirit because even after his service in the war, he flew experimental aircraft and tested aircraft. So he's kind of the embodiment of that pioneer spirit. A lot of volunteers come together in Auburn daily. A lot of volunteers help to make this happen. A lot of volunteers raise money. And so I want to thank everybody that was involved in that effort today. So the other thing is, it's truly an honor to be the mayor of this town today. It's a privilege to be presiding over a ceremony for this, receiving this marquette. This marquette will go into City Hall, and we will do a plaque that gives a biography of Colonel Bud Anderson, because I think it's important for anyone that visits to truly see probably our best testament and our finest example of what I believe is the finest generation, Bud Anderson. And now it is my privilege and my pleasure to introduce Congressman Tom McClintock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you all for coming out today to celebrate and salute and thank not only a bona fide American icon and a genuine hometown hero, but also one of the nicest and most gracious people any of us will ever meet. And I thought it was appropriate that the honor just bestowed on him by the FAA was in part for air safety. The way I hear it told, if you were an American bomber crew flying over Nazi Germany, the air's got a lot safer if you saw Old Crow out your window. And it wasn't like that until he got there. In the autumn of 1943, we were losing the air war over Europe. We threw masses of American bombers at Germany with nothing to show but horrific losses. We faced the most advanced fighter planes and most experienced fighter pilots in the world. In a single bombing raid in September of 1943, 45 B-17s were destroyed. On October the 14th, 1,100 German fighter planes destroyed 65 B-17s, taking the lives of more than 600 American airmen in a single day. To put that in perspective, that's about 2 years of combat casualties from Iraq. in one day. That's the situation over the skies of Europe when Bud Anderson and his comrades arrived in England a month later. And yet these young men, untested and outgunned, literally turned the tide of battle. History's verdict was succinctly put in a recent documentary that reported, quote, "The raids on the synthetic fuel factories were a success. In only 2 months, Germany's oil production was cut in half. The Mustang and men like Bud Anderson saved the daylight bombing campaign. They also saved thousands of lives and turned an Allied disaster into victory," end quote. History has spoken. Colonel Anderson flew 116 combat missions in his old Crow. He's credited with shooting down 16 1/4 aircraft in aerial combat. He was decorated 25 times for his heroism, including 2 Legions of Merit, 5 Distinguished Flying Crosses, the Bronze Star, 16 Air Medals, the French Legion of Honor, and the French Croix de Guerre. Perhaps the highest honor came from another member of the 357th Combat Group, Chuck Yeager, who called Bud Anderson a mongoose, the best fighter pilot I ever saw. Colonel Anderson went on to serve with distinction in Korea and Vietnam during his 30 years of continuous military service to our nation. Instead of retiring, he came home to California to manage McDonnell Douglas's legendary flight facility at Edwards Air Force Base, developing many of the cutting-edge breakthroughs that will continue to bear fruit for our nation and for the world for generations to come. That's his story, and we would vainly flatter ourselves if we were to believe for a moment that there's anything more that we could do to honor him today. His honors are in his deeds, written indelibly and boldly on the pages of history. All that we can do is marvel at those deeds, be grateful for them, and teach them to our children and our children's children as the qualities that built our nation and the qualities that can save it. And above all, we should draw instruction from them. Colonel Anderson grew up in the little town of Newcastle, not far from here, in the 1920s and 30s. Not long ago in the grand sweep of history, yet it was an age and a place where uniquely American values of individual responsibility, self-reliance, love of liberty, sense of duty, and love of country were very real, very strong, and inculcated in the very souls of America's greatest generation. We're here because we need to know that in this nation there once existed an American spirit that compelled us to recognize moral imperatives and to celebrate American exceptionalism without reservation or hesitation. And we're here because we want to know that that spirit still exists right beneath the surface of daily life and that can yet be called forth if we remember the lessons taught through the exploits of the giants that came before us. Such a giant is Bud Anderson, a great example of these virtues, a great reminder that they are real, and a great teacher from whom we can yet relearn these truths in a world once again piled high with dangers at home and abroad. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce my good friend, colleague, and next-door neighbor, Congressman Doug LaMalfa.
We're running way ahead of schedule, so take extra time.
You don't want to tell me that? You want me to share that? He said, we're running ahead of schedule, take extra time. Guys, politicians, microphones, man, that's dangerous. So I won't do that, but I am just, you wouldn't believe how I am so honored and proud to be able to stand at this place today once again to honor a gentleman I've gotten to know the last couple of years, like Colonel Bud Anderson is. And I'm also proud of the turnout that you have made here today for all of you, the Van Houds, all that had a hand in making this ceremony and this celebration happen here today. So a big hand for everybody who helped put this together, really. So to our veterans that are here today that have served, those that are still serving, Colonel Anderson, of course, I know that we all share a great admiration for what they've done and for what they will do for us. I'm also you go ahead. And I'm also very glad to see a good representation of young people here today to be able to share in a moment like this and share in a treasure like Colonel Anderson, because for me, you know, I'm not a little kid anymore, but I still feel that way when I read of the history. I read a lot of history books back in my junior high days and early high school days about the exploits, about the effort it took when America and Europe and the world was in peril by those that would enslave us, those that would keep us captive if they had their way. And so to see that, again, a chance for that to come alive here with one of the great men right here who flew in an aircraft just like that at that time, 70 plus years ago. It brings it to life. And that just means a ton to me. And so again, for all you young people, soak this in here. Feel what this is, because this is special. This reflects a time when Americans really knew how to hang together and come together when it really counted. I hope we can do that again in the times we have to come. So I'm pretty concerned about where we're going as a nation. And when days like this come around, that we celebrate people like Colonel Anderson, or days like Veterans Day, days like Memorial Day, with the job, the tasks we have, whether it's Tom or myself in the U.S. House of Representatives, my colleagues in the state legislature, or all of us as citizens, as voters, as workers, as people that are upholding our values, let's not allow to have happened veterans that have already done the fight for us say, I don't recognize the country I once fought for. Let's not allow that to happen. So for me to try and list the accolades of Bud that's already been done so well here today, I know we share the excitement for that. We also share in our thoughts Ellie today as well, and share that with you, sir. Our hearts are with you. God bless you, and God bless her as well. And with all we have to look forward to, not just today, but going forward as a nation, as a people, I want to share with you that I have a constant reminder every day, actually myself, of Colonel Anderson. Now, about two plus years ago, there was a ceremony over here to name one of the streets after Bud. And so I was given the honor of being able to stop by and make a few short comments. And so I had the placard still from that day. Has my name, Congressman-elect Doug, on there, and on the back, celebrating Bud Anderson. He autographed it for me, so I have that stuck to the front of my desk in Washington, D.C. People come to see me, see that part, but I see his autograph and his name every single day as I look across that desk. So with that, sir, God bless you. I'm proud to know you, proud of your services, because as our country, our world was in so much peril that time, 70 plus years ago, it was your efforts, kind of depicted in either the movie or the documentary, Memphis Belle. I think that really encapsulates it. If you want to watch something that Hollywood got mostly right, or the documentary, that comes pretty close. And so the important mission those bombers had to be able to break the back of Germany and their ability to make war a little at a time, the high cost Congressman McClintock talked about, but they kept at it. They pushed a little farther, and broke the ability for Germany to make war. It's because of those bombers and because of Colonel Anderson and his colleagues, as they say in the movie, their little friends that kept those bombers safe and kept those 109s and 190s off their back. And indeed, I'll finish with this, was when, because of his efforts, his colleagues' efforts, when Field Marshal Hermann Goering said late in 1944, as he's looking up at the skies and sees Allied aircraft flying over Germany and Berlin, he knew then it was over with. Sir, thank you for what you did. God bless you. We're with you. Thank you so much. And then there's the beautiful sound of those Rolls-Royce Merlins starting up. God bless America.
Great. Hey, how's everybody doing today? Is this an awesome day? Thank you so much for this honor to present to Colonel Anderson. In 1942, the world was at war. The future of the free world seemed grim, and the U.S. was still recovering from a formidable blow of Pearl Harbor. While America may have been caught by surprise, the world watched as the sleeping giant awakened, and the sound of duty in the hearts of men and women from the greatest generation. Men like Colonel Clarence Anderson answered the call for aid in his country's darkest hour. He voluntarily put his life on the line to protect his family, his country, and his freedom, and our freedom that makes America the great citadel of liberty. It goes without saying that Clarence Anderson, a native of Newcastle, has served California and his country with bravery and distinction worthy of honor in his 30 years of military service. In defense of our liberties, Colonel Anderson flew 2 tours of combat against the German forces in Europe. He flew a total of 116 missions in the 363rd Fighter Squadron of the 357th Fighter Group. Like my own father, who was a B-17 tail gunner, through the missions that were very dangerous, and they both returned without harm, due in part to their skill and the providence of God. And Colonel Anderson, it just makes me wonder, with my father being in a B-17 as a tail gunner, if you may have been protecting his squadron when they were up in the air. But they lost half their crew, and my dad to this day will not talk in detail in terms of what happened in that B-17 bomber, and talk about sacrifice of the greatest generation. So thank you for your service so much, bud. With the addition to being a decorated pilot, Anderson served 2 tours in the Pentagon and commanded 3 fighter organizations at the squadron and wing level. He was also an active test pilot at Edwards Air Force Base. Colonel Anderson served his country with valor, earning him various awards and titles, but perhaps the greatest achievement was being married for 69 years to the love of his life, raising a family of 2 children, 4 grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren. So my heart goes out to you and to Ellie and to your daughters. And what was that, an awesome national anthem? I don't think I've ever heard that sing better. It's incredible. Thank you. Colonel Bud Anderson is a decorated honorable serviceman, and it is my honor to present Colonel Anderson with the California State Senate certificate recognizing his many accomplishments. Colonel Anderson, could you please come forward? This is from the State Senate, and it just recognizes you and your many efforts. I will not read those because I think a lot of them have been mentioned, but thank you so much for your service, and it's an honor for me to present this to you today.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you very much.
A modest man who's done great things. I now will introduce Senator Jim Nielsen to come forward and make a presentation. Thank you. God bless you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are all touching history here today.
and being a part of history here today. I want to acknowledge a fellow out here that's a friend and former schoolmate. But this is a man that you know very well. Commander Diz Laird. Diz Laird. When I got here, I saw this distinguished man, and I sensed something was very special about him. Indeed, there is. He was an ace, maybe the only ace, in two theaters of war, the European and the Pacific Theater. That's a pretty special thing, a highly honored man, another man like Bud Anderson. It was a credit to his country then, when he came back here, and even now. And how appropriate it is that Bud be memorialized in this magnificent sculpture. What a day to celebrate, ladies and gentlemen. And I will tell you, these are perilous times. I fear that our country is as weak now as it was when Hitler was emboldened to launch his drive into Poland. Our country is almost as weak as it was when Hirohito sent his planes into Pearl Harbor. And I will submit without question, our enemies today are as emboldened now as our enemies were then, if not more so. As we then recognize our heroes who protected our country then, let's call upon all of us to be heroes today in whatever way we individually can to ensure our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren, including the 4 great-grandchildren of Bud Anderson, that they're going to have a better world, just like the greatest generation did leave that wonderful opportunity to us as a peaceful nation, but most importantly, as a free nation. And our freedom was at risk. These heroes preserved our freedom then. It is incumbent on us to preserve those freedoms now. Bud rightfully is in the Aviation Hall of Fame. And I would put him akin to other great heroes like John Glenn and Chuck Yeager, who after their careers did other pioneering work in aviation. But for that, we thank you. And we thank your Eleanor, who clearly was, all those years and yet now, the wind beneath your wings. As I present this to Bud, will all of you who are veterans out there please stand for us? Our veterans. And Bud, I'll bring it down to you. You don't even need to come up. And I must follow. You know, my father and stepfather's paths may have crossed with yours too. My father was a bombardier. My stepdad was what you call an air traffic controller, and I know he was launching the planes that left for Normandy and the ones that came back, and some didn't. But along the way, they knew people like you, Bud Anderson, were up there just like the Lord, watching over them. As chairman of the California State Senate Veterans Committee, I thought it would be appropriate for each member of that committee to co-sign this letter acknowledging Bud Anderson for his service to us and his country. God love you, sir. Bud Anderson. Thank you, Bud.
Stay up here with me, Bud. Ladies and gentlemen, the man of the hour, Colonel Bud Anderson.
Right now, let's unveil it.
Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute.
Oh, wait a-
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute. Bud wants to say
wait
something.
a minute. Why don't you all sit down? Gee, where do I start? You know, a lot of people have asked me, when I was a youngster, 22, and fighting in combat, did I ever think I'd be famous? And I have to honestly say, there's no way. We were absolutely just worried about the moment, not tomorrow. I mean, what we were doing at the moment, and thoughts of the future were really not with me. Got two more coming back here high. What a wonderful sound. Yeah. And that one airplane is marked in the same red and yellow colors of my fighter group. There's two things I want to say. Newcastle was my home of record. I actually lived on a farm, not in a city. And I always felt I never had a hometown, really. And since I moved back here in 1984 for family concerns and things like that, of course, Ellie was from Auburn. I live now in one place the longest I ever have. And a thing like this, it's just beyond awesome. I really feel like I have a hometown now, Auburn. And I think with that, let's pull it off, huh? Oh, we got to cut the.
It's your statue. All right.
Wow.
We'll see how this works. This was tough to get. In our practice, it hung up several times on the prop. The parachute was donated to us. It was very nice to have that parachute to cover it.
Wow. There's one more thing I want to remember to tell you. We're trying to make this a symbol of the greatest generation. It's me there, but I want people, and our committee wants people to think of veterans and be a memorial for the greatest generation. Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful. Beautiful. You would not believe how much work Doug and his crew did in order to create that. As Bud mentioned, there are a number of people that we would like to honor right here in our very own community of Auburn who were part of that greatest generation. And we do intend on adding to this recognition site as the years go on. You could help us if you would like to buy a commemorative brick, which we will inlay in the base of this statue. You can purchase them at the tent over there. It would be a great help. But going beyond that, last year, a group of Auburn citizens started a series that they called the Let's Never Forget series. And it was absolutely spectacular. We had some people who were actual survivors of the prisoner of war camps, the concentration camps in Germany, and they told us their story. It was heartbreaking, and we're going to continue that series this year. Dr. Kirby is one of the people heading that up, Councilman Bill Kirby. There are postcards over on the tables over there that will give you some information about the event and what it's going to happen. And believe me, once again, it's just going to be a marvelous, marvelous presentation. Please consider going to that. Thank you for coming this afternoon. We greatly appreciate your support. Thank you.
Well, here we are. This is the culmination of about 2 years of work. Statue and the Mustang up on top of it. Of course, we got it all covered up, trying to keep it secret for the big unveiling tomorrow. Not many people have seen it. I've seen each piece of it, and I did see them put it together. And one of the features of the memorial, of course, is the bricks. And right here in this corner, there's a brick for every member, every of the original 28 pilots of the 363rd Fighter Squadron are here. And about half of them were killed or prisoners of war. And as we walk along here, these are all donations that helped build this marvelous statue. And we can walk along here. I know most of these people on there. I actually put my crew chief and armor in there, and some of my family. And a lot of Warbird people, a lot of local people, businesses, and just part of the tremendous support that we had here in the community. Yeah, here we go. We're going to look at Jack Rouse. We bought two bricks.
A lot of people care a lot about Bud Anderson. Proud to be your friend.
Boy, that's a fact.
Can't wait till we unveil it tomorrow.
Yeah, you're going to love the Mustang.
Oh, I'm sure. Who wouldn't love a Mustang? But that looks pretty neat even under that cover.
Yeah, we're trying to. I don't know, my people have been out here poking around, but I think they've done a pretty good job of keeping that quiet.
And the shroud is actually a parachute, correct?
It is a parachute. It's a big cargo chute.
Oh.
And when they were putting it up, the wind was blowing pretty good, and it will hang up on the thing there. So I told them they better have some poles around here to help in case it hangs up. But it might work.
This airport's been here a long time. Do you remember it? I know they shut it down during the war, right?
No.
They kept it going during the war?
I think so.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. We had the. I think people had. That's right. Of course, I wasn't here when that happened.
Yeah, you were a little busy.
Yeah,
And we had another runway that came right through here. This at a cross runway, it came right through that little gulch, and it was I don't know. I think it was kind of dirt and gravel. I don't remember, but I flew off of here in the 40s before I joined the service.
Sure. Unbelievable. And it all comes full circle right back here.
I don't know any airport's going to have something like this on it. It's pretty cool.
But boy, did you meet some people in between.
Well, we wanted to emphasize the greatest generation, and you know, some of the bricks are there to honor somebody that fought and died in the war. There's the Korean War. A lot of people put their uncles and things like that, and veteran bricks, we'll call them. The purpose, really, of the monument was to honor veterans, not necessarily Bud Anderson, but the greatest generation. And there'll be a plaque here someday on the back side of it, and trying to say, you know, this is in memory of veterans of World War II, the greatest generation, and Bud Anderson just happens to be the representative.
And a good one.
Well, Bud, here we are in cold, rainy Auburn, California. A little bit of a surprise.
We need the rain.
Tomorrow they're going to unveil the new Veterans Memorial for Auburn, which prominently features you and Old Crow. You've received honors, military honors, and national honors, and international honors. What does being a part of this mean to you?
Well, it's a little more personal because it comes from the local community, and you know, it's pleasing to me because I never really had a hometown. I was raised on a farm about 7 miles from here, and my home of record was Newcastle, but I never lived there, you know, never lived in the actual town. And so we moved back here in 1984, just because it was where Ellie was home. And I actually went to high school here, graduated in 1939. And since we've been here, I moved once in 1990. And that means that I've lived here the longest in one place so far. And it's a small town. And I really feel like it's my hometown now, because this came from the community, and it's a little overwhelming for me.
When you walk around and live your daily life in Auburn, go to the grocery store, do the things anybody does, are you recognized often?
Oh yeah, you go to the bank, they know your name. Go to the grocery store, the guy in the vegetables knows who you are, and go to the post office, everybody knows you.
Well, we call it a memorial, we call it a monument. Do you recall, as a young person, as a kid, ever having any encounters with a Civil War monument or a World War I, or did you ever think about these things, and did you ever think one of them would involve you?
Not that I can remember. I don't remember any particular statue or memorial that I can remember from my youth that, you know, impressed me, or I just never heard of it.
Well, you know, we're at an airport.
Yeah, wow.
Your airplanes. That airplane behind you, the restoration of one very much like you flew, becoming a Triple Ace Plus in World War II, that too is going to be part of the memorial. when it's unveiled, as we understand it. We haven't seen it yet. It's kind of like you and that airplane are joined at the hip. Do you ever think about that, or have you said everything you're ever going to say and thought everything you're ever going to think about Old Crow?
Well, when we were, people ask me all the time, you know, when you were flying during the war and everything, did you ever think that stuff like this would happen? And I can honestly say no, because all really we thought about was getting through the day, and without a thought of tomorrow, let alone, 50 years later.
Well, of course, when the war ended, there was probably a little bit of, okay, that's behind me, I've done that. You moved on with your Air Force career, went into flight test, and ended up going back into combat as a wing commander in Vietnam. Was there a time when that chapter of your life, the World War II chapter of your life, kind of went away and then came back, or?
Not really. I think it's just one chapter, You can't compare World War II with Vietnam. Just not the same.
Well, and do people understand how important the flight test work was? It was an interesting time to be in flight test after World War II.
Oh yeah, that was a great time, great flying, and very, very interesting.
Well, there's certainly the possibility that 15 or 20 years from now, a young person will walk onto the Auburn airport, possibly with a parent, and they're going to look at this memorial, and they're going to say, who's that guy? Why is he up there?
Yeah.
And if you could control what the answer is going to be, what would you say?
Well, what the committee, the founders wanted this memorial, would like to think that people will remember it as the greatest generation, and that Bud Anderson represents that. We really want it to be a statue that people look at it and will remember our military things of the past and the present in that sense.
Well, as you might well imagine, there's people all over the country, all over the world that would love to be here, that are friends of yours. We get emails and stuff on our social media and on our website saying, congratulations to the colonel, please tell him that.
Yeah.
And you've probably gotten some of that too.
Too. There's a family coming from Hawaii, and he's a former member of my fighter group, and he's bringing 3 of his kids. And the farthest ones that's coming are a couple from Sweden that the guy flew the Old Crow over there in Norway. And he and his wife and their son are going to be here Saturday. I think they're the farthest ones that come away.
But there are folks that would I'm sure you would like for them to have been here and can't be here. Your mom and dad.
Oh yeah.
do you think about folks like that?
Oh yeah.
Maybe people would like to know if you have any thoughts about your best flying friend from your youth, Jack Stacker.
Oh yeah. All these things come back, memories, and the guys that didn't make it in the squadron. And we're trying to. I'm like it to be a memorial to them. Matter of fact, we put bricks for every member of the original squadron. 363rd Squadron is around the bottom of the statue.
You're probably as proud of that as you are anything else.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we lost, I would say, half the squadron. It was either killed or prisoners of war, the original 28 pilots. And of course, that's the tragedy of World War II, was the extreme loss of life, numbers that I can't comprehend, and numbers that our historians can't comprehend. They can't come with even in a million agreeing how many people died. You read your history books and they'll tell you 40 to 50 million people died. One book says 72 million died. I've heard other commentators say 100 million people died. I just can't comprehend that. And that's why I get it down to, you know, my squadron that I trained with. That's a name and a face, and half of them took the rough end of the stick.
Well, how do you stay in such good shape? I mean, not only are we going to have this wonderful time tomorrow, but you're asked to participate in aviation events all over the country. It's nothing for you to fly from the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean and participate in Sun and Fun. And you went to Washington last week. You're going back next week. What? Give us a secret.
No minor vices.
Despite the name of your airplane.
I don't know. I think staying active is probably good for me at this particular time. I just kind of get on autopilot.
Well, you're an inspiration to all of us for any number of reasons. Just a little more about folks that won't be here, good friends of yours like Jack Roush, our mutual great friend Ed Bolin, and maybe even your dear Ellie. You know, you have thoughts of all those folks.
Yeah. I wish they could have be here, especially Ellie. She saw the statue or the mold one time. Veterans Day, we had a little get together over at the studio, and so she knew about it. I wish they could all be here.
Whose idea was it to do this memorial this way? In other words, with the sculpture, which took years. I mean, this is a work of art.
Mm-hmm.
Whose idea was it to go that route?
Well, I'm not sure you could pin it down to one person. I would hate to say one or the other, or this was kind of a committee action, you might say. I don't know.
Well, to thousands of people, you are a hero, and they can't be here tomorrow, but what do you have to say to them?
I wish you were here.
Well, Bud, the guests tomorrow are going to be thrilled that they're going to be able to see this actual flying restoration of your airplane, Old Crow. This one owned by Jim Hagedorn, the CEO of Scott's Miracle-Gro Company in Marysville, Ohio, and it came a long way to get here.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a story in
Oh,
and
yeah.
of itself.
Yeah.
So maybe talk a little bit about the airplane, and then we'll meet Connie, who made that flight.
Okay. Well, of course, the airplane is not the real Old Crow, but it's a real Mustang, painted exactly like my World War II aircraft near the end of my second tour. Silver paint scheme. It's got all the kills on it, and it's pretty special to me, but have that thing flying. And I really appreciate the generosity of Jim Hagedorn and letting Connie and Major Ray Fowler fly it out here. It's a long way, and it's a lot of fuel, and that's a very special thing.
We're going to bring in Connie Bolin.
Okay.
Your dear friend, our dear friend. What can you say about her as a pilot? Other than Jim Hagedorn said, "Here's the keys to my Mustang." And Connie, tell us about flying how many hours yesterday to bring this airplane to California?
Well, I checked the Hobbs meter this morning, and it was 10.1 hours. As Bud said, Major Ray Fowler came out with me. We shared the duties, but that means we also shared the back seat. It's kind of cramped back there.
Yeah, it is.
Actually, I've had the honor of having Colonel Anderson in the back seat of a Mustang with me before.
yeah.
It was a great trip, and Bud said it. Jim Hagedorn is very generous with his time and his support. Little history on all that. Jack Roush owned the old Crow airplane, and when Jim bought it, Jack says, "Well, I have to tell you, it comes with Colonel Anderson and your support of Colonel Anderson." So Jim has stepped up and done that over the years, and he said it comes with a lot of Warbird friends, Ed and Connie Boland. So we've become real good friends with Jim Hagedorn. So a few months ago when I said, "Jim, we're having this dedication, or they're having a dedication for Bud out in Auburn," he said, by all means, Connie, do you want to fly it out there? And I said, well, yeah.
Somebody has to do it.
Somebody has to do it. So we had a great trip out yesterday.
Well, just to give folks a little perspective, Bud, your longest mission in a Mustang was how long?
The average mission was about 4.5 hours. But the longest mission I flew was on D-Day, and I logged 6 hours and 55 minutes. And I still had a pretty good reserve. It could do 8 hours if you didn't carry a lot of power.
And yesterday was 10.2?
10.1.
10.1.
But who's counting?
Was anyone shooting at you?
No.
That makes it a little easier.
That was a little
And they
easier.
made 2 stops.
2 stops. You could
Three.
just stop when you
Actually,
wanted.
3 stops.
3 stops.
Made
I'm
3
sorry.
stops.
Yeah.
Yes. And knowing you're in Bud's airplane and what it means to a lot of people, the people of Auburn should be celebrated for not only recognizing the veterans, but picking one of the classiest gentlemen that I have ever met to have be the feature point of their Veterans Memorial. It's pretty special.
If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like and subscribe. And as always, thank you for watching.